So today, we're very excited on how technology is enhancing sports and their players. Excited to have you guys all here. Why don't we start with, so Reina kind of gave us a little bit of a background of herself and the details around her. Reina, why don't you tell us one thing we don't know about you, and then I'll get the guys to jump in and give a background on themselves and one thing no one knows about you.
One thing no one knows about me? I wasn't ready for that. If I wasn't in sports, I'd probably be in a dramatic arts program right now. That's like the arts field is a second big passion of mine. So if I wasn't doing sports, that would probably be the direction that I'd be heading in.
Awesome. All right, Costa, you're up.
All right, so I'm Costa Kladianos, 20 years in sports technology. From MLSE, CFL, work with Ryan there at both MLSE and CFL, and most recently Tennis Canada. I run a blog, sports tech business, where I focus on generating value for teams and organizations through technology. And as well, I'm really excited about the startup space and want to talk about it more because I think that's leading the way when we're looking at sports technology, and the big companies kind of follow suit in terms of what the startups can innovate.
Perfect. Ryan.
Hey everybody, Ryan Janzen. I'm the Associate Vice President Football Operations at the CFL. Been there almost 15 years. Worked with Costa at MLSE back in the day. Spent some time at McMaster in my alma mater. I got to know Reina a little bit a couple years ago at an event in Indianapolis, and I'm a huge fan. And probably have known Jeff Potvin for 35 years, 35, 40 years, eh, Jeff? Give or take?
Well, yeah.
That's the highlight of my life right there. Knowing Jeffy Potvin that long.
Yeah, that's all right. All right, good. Well, perfect. We'll jump right into it. So I know that, Costa, you mentioned, and we talked about this before, what I like about it is that you have a leading line around startups. So the part that I like about this is that it interests you, but it also interests the fields that you're bringing into big business. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what is the types of startups that you see that work inside of big business when it comes to obviously sports and trying to enable sports teams to be more active or more interactive?
Yeah, and to me, there's, in terms of startups and sports tech, there's always a lot of technology out there that can be done by anybody and can be done really well. But what I look for in startups that I'm working with is who are the people behind it, because great people will deliver a great product and they'll deliver great service and they'll be successful no matter what. And that's the kind of companies I look at. And right now, post-COVID, when sports comes back, it's already starting. It'll come back and maybe a little bumpy for a while, obviously. But when it comes back, this is really a time for opportunity for companies. I know a lot of companies are out there saying, oh, we're screwed, whatever. That's not the fact at all. So many companies, I've gone through the dot-com bust in my career. I've gone through 9/11. I've gone through 2008. 3 terrible events, 2 a lot worse than the other, obviously. But in the end, the great companies survived. They saw opportunities and they wrote it out. And it was great people behind them, solving business challenges, being innovative and working with teams and saying, listen, how can we work with you? It's not like this is our product, take it or leave it. It's okay, this is what we offer. How can we tailor it to help you guys? And how can we really help you guys for now get through this area post-COVID? So whether it's bringing fans back, whether it's creating a platform when you don't have fans in the stands, how can we help you with that? And providing that service. And as long as you're nimble and innovative and work with the teams and have great people behind it, you'll be successful, or you'll have the greatest chance for success. You can't predict that, obviously, but that's, I think, how startups really need to position themselves moving forward.
No, that's great, and agreed that it's an open range right now. There's a lot of opportunity, and it's really getting in front of the right people to hear the types of products that you have. Everybody's trying to figure out how to make this work, considering now that you just have big banners as fans. So there's marketing changes, there's people changes, lots happening. Ryan, on your side, with the Argos switching and moving into a different stadium, and obviously the season's been pushed out, what are you guys looking at, and do startups fit into that mix?
Yeah, I mean, technology has really changed at the CFL over the last decade or so. If you go back and look at film from the early 2000s, mid 2000s, it's a very different game because there's no real technology involved. I mean, now we have a command center with officials making decisions in Toronto from a game taking place in BC. We have coaches looking at video in between plays from the previous play and being able to scheme and talk to their players about things that are happening in real time. But I think, yeah, technology is really, like I said, it's in the last decade or so, it's really come to the CFL and really come to a lot of sports in general. And we're constantly looking for ways to improve the game and improve it via technology. I'd say the one thing we would like to do, there's tons of companies out there, but it being the Canadian Football League, in a perfect world, we would deal with Canadian companies. So if we had to choose between two companies, a Canadian and American, and they both provide the same options, we would go the Canadian route because it's something that we feel passionate about. So I think for these startups, and I mean, obviously you want to look in your backyard first and look at some of the contacts you have and look at some of the places that are local, because you know those people are going to want to support you versus a company from San Francisco or something like that.
And that's great to hear. I think a lot of people obviously want to know that big business is supporting local. If you're going to put something together, I'd rather be going to the Argos and to local teams to be able to get them to test my product so that I can move it out to a bigger stage. Are you finding that there's some real cool tech that's coming out now on the player side? And Reina, maybe you can jump in on that. Is there certain things that you guys were using at university or that you've been using over the last years that really emphasize the change of tech that's happening and the types of things that you guys are looking for to make you more efficient, but also shows the club that there's a lot more value in tech than just the players?
Well, we have these like speed bags that are on wheels now, and they actually and you can control it by remote. So instead of actually tackling one of your own guys and fatiguing or potentially getting injured, we use these speed bags now, and it's injury prevention, and it's just more efficient. And I'm seeing more stuff like that, and we discussed this before a couple weeks ago, how I saw I think it was Japan's volleyball team, I can't remember, but they literally had like a robot playing volleyball with the team, and it was going just as fast and reacting just as fast, if not actually faster than a human being. And I think potentially in the future, rosters may get smaller because less people are going to be injured. And if you have these robots or whatever, I don't know, these pieces of technology implemented in your practice, and they're more efficient than a human being, and they cost less than a human being in the long run, it may change the game drastically in that way, in terms of actual hands-on performance, like on the field circumstances. But in terms of like networking, if you don't mind me kind of swearing on that side, it's super effective for especially someone like me. So I post videos on my Instagram of me working out, and it's not me showing off, it's me networking, because it's kind of like, I kind of call it insurance, because for example, in my grade 12 year, my senior year, I tore my ACL during recruiting season. So I had experienced a lot of politics the season prior to that. So I didn't get much playing time, and that was a huge problem for me because your film as an athlete is your resume. But on my Instagram, what I did have was, I didn't have much football film, but I had workout videos of me showing how quick my feet are, a little bit of my agility and my strength training. And that was enough and it still is enough now. Like it helps coaches see a different angle of you as an athlete, and especially what you comment to, how you reply and stuff. It shows your character, and it shows your type of humor, and it's just a all-rounded type of platform and avenue. It's not just one way you can go. There's many avenues now, and it's kind of scary on one end, but also it's incredibly useful on another. So that's just sort of my perspective on it.
No, that's great. And you make a valid point, is that, you know, the tech works on enabling you to be safer, conduct more, but then it also opens up your resume to the world to now to see who you are, right? And I know, Ryan, you guys have done a lot of this worldly research to find players all over the world. I'm assuming you're doing a lot of that through tech. Are you guys also looking at other ways to offset injuries and reduce headcount so you only have the amount of people you need?
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of taken it in our own hands, and we, our commissioner, Randy Ambrosi, outlawed, once training camp was over, our regular seasons were practices had to be no contact. So just helmets. So we've really reduced injuries throughout the year, which has been great. And as Reina said, there are some devices and tackling dummies that are on remote control that are pretty cool and innovative. One path we'd like to go down a little bit more are the wearables for the players. Everything from kind of how fast they're going, how good and quick they can get out of their breaks, but also things like blood pressure and heart rate. Things like that will help the medical community as well. Keep an eye on these players. There's a really cool technology that Wilson has developed with a football. Basically it's a chip, and when you throw it, it gives you all this data. So what you can do is basically you can look at your quarterback and you can see, okay, after about 50 throws, then he starts to fatigue and the velocity slows down and he can't make that deep wide side out throw anymore. So based on that information, you may change your play calls late in the fourth quarter because you know your quarterback has already thrown 35 passes. So there are a lot of cool things out there. We haven't developed that, or we haven't opened that up to our games yet. But teams have the ability to use that in practices and in their training. But there are lots of things. I've always been a big fan of when you watch a game on TV, you see the TSN, the first down marker. I'd like to one day put that in the stadium. So fans who are sitting in the nosebleeds, they know exactly where the first down marker is. And I know there are some companies out there that are working through that. But things like that to make the in-stadium game and the experience better. TV is amazing. There are all these camera angles and the cable cam, and it's TV sitting at home and watching it is great, but we need to also find ways in which to make the in-game experience better, to get fans out to the games, to enjoy the game and to support their team that way. So there are some opportunities in stadium as well.
Well, that's great. And I think you're right. There's multifaceted. We're going to talk about this in the next panel, but there's startups that are focusing on revenue generation and getting more eyeballs outside of the game. But at the same time, there's lots that can happen inside the game. You still can have anywhere from 20 to 100,000 fans in a stadium, and you got to make it a great experience for them, even if that experience isn't going to change, is going to alter, I guess, over the next maybe 12 months. But there is a lot that can be enhanced there to make everybody have a real enjoyable experience all around. Costa, in the tennis game, they seem to embrace technology way before anybody else has. Football, soccer, all of these sports were really late into the game. Are you finding that tennis and the other places that you've worked, that they are trying to embrace tech a lot faster because it's enabling the game? And do you see that changing any of the revenue models?
Yeah, I think the luxury that tennis has, it can sometimes work against them, but it's individual camps and individual teams, so they can be a little more nimble. So if, let's say, a Federer wants something, he can get it done, whereas in CFL or NHL, it has to be a league-wide kind of decision a lot. So there's a little more red tape to that, obviously being larger organizations. But some of the things we've seen in tennis, I think the two biggest things, not only in tennis, but in other sports that are coming out now, is virtual reality and augmented reality. That's really for training that has been accelerated because no one's been allowed to really train with anybody for the last 4 months. So I've seen it in tennis, where you can have your opponent there and virtually train against your opponent, and they're getting really good. Will it ever replace real live training? Probably not. You never know. But it's a great complement and it's a great enhancement. And it's a great way to see yourself, what you're doing wrong against a more of a live opponent than kind of nothing. And then the second area is predictive analytics. I work with a company called Zone 7. They work with a lot of Premier League teams over in Europe, and they use data points from wearables and other areas of intake of data from the players to actually predict the percentage of injury, percentage chances of injury that a player can go through. And it's actually, studies have shown it to be quite effective in predicting things such as potential for ACL tears is the number one thing, obviously, because soccer, that's a real issue. So we're starting to get into an area where if you can predict if someone's going to get injured, you can back them off and change their training, or, you know, rest them and let them recover. And that's going to really help careers. And you look at teams going forward. So that's kind of, so teams are seeing that value and they're seeing the results of it. It's not just a cool technology. They're actually seeing an ROI to it. And that kind of makes the process a little bit quicker, because if you can show results and you can show ROI, then it becomes a no-brainer. It's the cases where you're promising the world and haven't seen any results yet, where the teams sit back and say, okay, hold on a sec, because these are huge investments. So they want something proven. They want something out there that makes sense for them. So proving that ROI and showing that it makes sense is going to get teams thinking about it and players using it.
And I think, just to jump in, Jeff, I think what tennis has done a really good job with their challenges and whether the ball's in or out, it's the quick challenge by the player, and you find out and you get the big video screen and you know within 6 seconds whether it's a correct challenge or not. We struggle with that a little bit. Anytime there's a coach's challenge, okay, it goes back to Toronto, and it takes anywhere from, we like to keep it to ideally 40 seconds, but sometimes if it's really close and the game's on the line, we want to make sure it's right. It may take 2 minutes. So that you kind of lose momentum that way, but tennis has done a great job with that, where it's almost instant, and you move on to the next play and momentum is kept going. So
and they actually made it a fan. That's a great point, Ryan. They actually made it a fan kind of experience. So when the challenge goes up on the board, the fans are clapping as they watch they watch the animation go down. So they've turned that into kind of a fan experience, and they've sold it as a digital asset to corporate partners, which is another great part. So they're really hitting all the aspects of it.
Yeah, agreed.
They're making you feel part of the game, right? And I like the fact that you mentioned showing ROI and proving that this is a win, because it's a cost all around the game. If I don't find a way, you could have a million techs running through a stadium and through every business, but if none of them prove a real value in return, then what's the point? And I do know that, basketball teams, they're working on sleeves where they can monitor your three-point shot, so it corrects you where your elbow is out too far, and all these different pieces. So I'm assuming that type of tech is really going to enhance throwing the ball, tackling, how often, what the impact is on different jerseys that they wear, all that type of stuff. So I guess, Reina, when you're in your training, do you guys get products coming to you? Are they asking you guys to test products? Because it would seem like it's the best spot is to go to universities, get them to test all your products, and then go to big market with them.
Actually, no. With my school, no. I haven't had that type of experience yet. But regards to, for example, clearing me for my ACL, they put I forgot what it's called, but like you literally sit on this machine and you like strap your leg down to it, and you have to kick a certain amount of times, and it'll measure how strong your hamstring and your quad is and stuff. And then that'll kind of be one tool that they'll use to clear you for playing. They'll say, no, you're not strong enough yet, or you still have too much instability. So it's kind of like a more specific way of knowing whether or not you're okay to take the next steps post rehab. But in terms of actually testing out products, I haven't. I know, my trainer, she's linked with, she's affiliated with a vegan protein company. So in terms of technology and food and nutrition, I really like their stuff, and I get to try their stuff. Sometimes free products and stuff like that. So on the nutritional side, I kind of get to test out new things and see if I feel a difference or notice a difference. But other than that, yeah, that's pretty much it.
And that's a good point.
Sorry, Jeff. The tough thing about football is there's a lot of products out there that you'd love to test, but there's so few games, and you don't want to test in a game. So, and without a minor league like what the NHL and MLB have, and they test a lot of their new products and technology in the minors, we don't have that luxury. So we often test at maybe our combine or at maybe the U Sport East West Bowl or something like that, where there's some opportunities. But in football, I wish there were more, because every game is so important, and there's so few games that you need to test it well before you actually get it in a game. And it's just finding the games, that's the tricky part.
So they're going to need to look at opening some of that up. I remember when I played junior hockey, we had skates from Bauer. So they would bring us the new skates. We try them in practice, and then if we liked them, we try them in a game, and they just kept revolving. So I never had to wear the same pair of skates. But again, they were testing for mass market by hitting up small teams, right? It sounds like that could be a good way for all the businesses to kind of structure how they can bring startups in by getting them to test product and getting them to market. But it's such a big area, right? You've got nutrition, you've got health and gear, you've got on-field, off-field. Like, there are so many pieces you could tie startups into this whole process on how to monitor and ensure that your product, if you will, your player is a rock star throughout the whole process. Is there, and we've talked a little bit about this, but, and maybe Costa, you can throw a little bit more into what you were talking about before, but you're getting into multi-screen revenue drivers, how you can fully engage fans. Is there something in here that you guys are seeing that really needs to change in order to adapt to the current situation that we're in, and maybe where the game's going to go in the next 12 to 36 months?
Yeah, and I think this goes back to looking at this time as a opportunity to kind of reboot. So if you look at your teams, if you come back with the same old, what's that going to do? You've now you have the total loss of the revenue of however long you were off. But if you use this as a time to say, let's try some new things, let's try and engage our fans, and let's look at sport differently, let's look at an organization differently through technology, then you've now are using this as an opportunity to grow. For example, the games on the field, looking at them instead of just kind of a sport to come and watch, teams should be looking at as a platform to create content, a platform to engage fans. It should be looked at, okay, how are we going to engage people who aren't at the stadium right now because they can't be, but then when the fans come back, you can only fit so many people in there, 20, 30, 40,000, and you have this opportunity to engage people all around the world who can't make it there and find new fans. So whether it's doing AR, and for example, some teams, I forgot the exact team, they have an AR app, with AR within their app where you can take a selfie with your favorite player who's a hologram and share that. So how cool would it be for a kid to take a picture with LeBron James or Bianca Andreescu, where it's impossible to do it in real life, but only a really lucky few get a chance, but here anybody can do it. And now they're creating that connection with their players. So it's trying these things out, and it's a little easier right now when you have no fans in the stadium to go to senior management and say, listen, we want to engage our fans who aren't there this way, and then be able to do that when fans come back. So it's using it again as an opportunity, because even when you can fill the arena, it's pre-COVID, the arenas have started moving towards less seats and more social spaces, more activations, more engagements, because let's be realistic. If you want to watch the game, it's a lot better at home in your air conditioning with your couch and your TV. It's a lot more fun, where the stadium experience is more fun when it's a social experience, and where it's an innovative experience. So you have all the technologies around, you have a way to share it with your friends, and it's a place to go and have fun. And that's how you want to position it. So it's using this as an opportunity to get those things through, try them out. And then when sports are fully back revving 100%, you're ahead of the game and you are in the position to grow rather than just kind of continue at the same pace.
No, that's great. And Ryan, on your side, are you guys, being in the thick of it, are you guys looking at all these different avenues and saying, you know what, we need to find better ways to generate revenue, create eyeballs? So instead of—
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think to Costa's point, this is the this is the perfect time for us to talk to the startups and to look at technology, and ideally test things out if we can, because we have time right now. Things are slow. I mean, we're dealing with trying to get the season back on par, but this is the time. Everybody's got a bit more time than they normally do. Normally it's crazy. In season is nuts. So we have time now. We wouldn't have the money to spend now, but if we can test things out, kind of get a wish list together, then once we're back up and running, and hopefully sooner than later, then we can actually start to invest in these technologies that we liked during the slowdown.
And then going to Ryan's point to build off of that, it's a lot of teams, or most teams will say they don't have the money to spend, which they don't. Let's be realistic. There's a lot of sponsorship money that's gone and it's not coming back. There's a lot of ticket revenue that's gone and not coming back. So what startups really have to do is position themselves for every dollar you spend with me, you're going to get $10 back, and show how it's done really quickly. And if they can find that model where they can guarantee some revenue, then it's easier for the team or the league side to say, okay, this makes sense because it's no longer a cost center, it's a revenue generator. And that's how technology companies have to be looking.
No, that's great. Well, I think we got a lot out about the players, around the whole business side of it, the model, the things that are changing. So I'm going to ask one last question before we jump into the next panel. And how long does it take before there's going to be women playing in more cross sports, so that you're having more women in football, not just as coaches, but players, or you're going to have robots playing? Which one's coming, and which one's coming faster and going to make this happen? Brian, you tell us.
No to the robots. Yes to Reina.
So is it something that's in the forefront? Are people looking at this and saying, you know what, the competition side's huge, that this is going to start to peel in? I know I've seen so many different polls and way people have been fighting this, as it's either a good or it's bad. Is it something that's possible, or is it still everybody feels that they got to keep it separated because of the craziness of all of it? Or what's the outlook on that?
No, I think we're expanding globally. We would love German and Japanese and Italian players in the league. How amazing would it be to have women players in the league? I think that would just open up a whole new demographic for us. So no, we would be fully supportive of that.
All right.
In Canada, we got the best women's tennis player in the world, Bianca Andreescu, and the best tennis player in Canada. So, well, I'm all for it. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right, that's brilliant. Well, I love it. Well, I want to thank you guys very much for joining us today. This was great.